we're actually losing fertility products that are being applied to the land because they're being applied in excess. They're not being utilized by the plant, although they're put there for the plant, and then they're ending up in the water systems. He actually alludes to the algae blooms that we're seeing now in Lake Erie being related to that nitrogen loss into those water systems.
Yeah, my name is Jim Halbeisen, and this is my opinion.
Looking at agricultural literature, there was a recent article that appeared on Data Transmission Network, that's DTN, where they are saying certain environmental groups are requesting that EPA looks more closely at the nitrate buildup in well waters in northeastern Iowa. And this issue has been around for a fair amount of time. I can remember when I was in college in the early 70s, the first editions of the Journal of Environmental Quality talked about the loss of nitrogen into the environment from agriculture. You have basically two types of pollution. You have from animal agriculture, from application of waste, but then you have the loss of fertilizer nitrogen into the environment, which becomes a big issue too, because farmers are using nitrogen as a ability to build yield in their crops, which is supposedly helping with their profitability. But this problem with the nitrogen accumulation or the nitrate accumulation in water has been consistently a problem. It's being looked at not just necessarily from the environmentalists, but you get into the healthcare field and they are tying several different maladies to the excess of nitrogen or nitrate that's in drinking water, particularly. What we see is in pregnant women, the starvation of oxygen to the fetus because the nitrate in the bloodstream that comes from the water is trapping oxygen in the blood, which cannot service the fetus. There's also publications stating that certain types of cancers are related to excessive accumulation of nitrate in drinking water. Actually, if you look at the cancer rates in the state of Iowa, they are very high compared to the rest of the country. I think there's only one other state that's showing a higher per capita cancer rate than Iowa, and that would be Kentucky. And they're talking about this being related to pesticides that are being used in the food chain or being used by farmers, but they are also showing that the rate could be definitely tied to the excessive amount of nitrate that's in drinking water. And see, at Growers Mineral Corp, we've talked about this for a long time. One of the founders, Victor Tegens, discussed this in a 1966 interview from a local Norwalk paper and saying that we're actually losing fertility products that are being applied to the land because they're being applied in excess. They're not being utilized by the plant, although they're put there for the plant, and then they're ending up in the water systems. He actually alludes to the algae blooms that we're seeing now in Lake Erie being related to that nitrogen loss into those water systems. And see, that publication came out in 1966. And Tegens' approach to this was that once we fix the soil and biologically improve the way the soil functions, the way it's designed to work, that the need for the higher levels of nitrogen can go down quite significantly. And you have to approach it, fertility, from a standpoint of timing. You've got to get it there when the plant actually needs it. And when you examine what a farmer is producing or to making its livelihood, it is related to energy, and energy is a carbon factor. So in other words, when the farmer is selling a food substance, the individual consuming it is getting the energy from that food substance. And that's all coming from the atmosphere or the soil itself. And so the actual need for these high levels of nitrogen are not necessarily important or necessary for the farmer to make a decent living. And Tegens is saying once you get the soil to function correctly biologically, then you bring your fertility in at correct timing, the plant will utilize it much more efficiently, and then your loss into the environment will go down quite significantly. And see, in recent years, as the price of fertility inputs has escalated quite significantly, farmers are starting to look at that. Actually, there's new types of nitrogen that are being developed to take advantage of this and utilize a significantly less volume, something that is more environmentally acceptable, more sustainable. Most nitrogen products today, which are made with natural gas, you have an evolution of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere that is very, very high. And this is not acceptable, to society as far as climate change is concerned. So the idea of lowering the utilization of nitrogen in your farming practice, making it more sustainable, looking for different types of nitrogen and correct utilization of it would help with the amount that is being lost into the environment.
This podcast has been brought to you by Growers Mineral. Please visit growersmineral.com.